Have you ever wondered why movements in Sholat hold such significance in Islam? Sholat, also known as Salah, is one of the 5 pillars of Islam, serving as a physical manifestation of a Muslim's faith and devotion. It is not merely a ritual, but an act of worship that combines the mind, body, and soul in a unique blend of physical movements and spiritual contemplation. Now, imagine Sholat as a beautifully choreographed dance, where each move is not just a physical action, but carries a profound symbolic meaning. These movements are not arbitrary. They are deeply rooted in Islamic tradition and scriptures, each one echoing a facet of the Muslim's relationship with their creator. Let's start with the very first movement, standing or qiyam. This upright stance symbolizes a believer's readiness to engage with their Lord, their willingness to stand before him in humility and submission. From there, each subsequent movement unfolds like a spiritual journey, taking the believer deeper into a state of devotion and surrender. The act of bowing or ruku reflects a sense of humility and acknowledgement of our insignificance before the grandeur of the Almighty. When we prostrate or perform sujud, we are at our most vulnerable, our foreheads touching the ground in the ultimate act of submission and closeness to God. Meanwhile, the sitting positions, jalsa and qada, provide moments of reflection and connection, reinforcing the spiritual bond between the worshipper and their Lord. These movements, when performed with mindfulness and understanding, can transform Sholat from a mere ritual into a profound spiritual experience. Every rise and fall, every bend and bow becomes a physical expression of our innermost feelings of love, fear, hope, and awe for our Creator. So as you can see, the movements in Sholat are not just physical exercises. They are symbolic expressions of our spiritual journey, each one loaded with meaning and purpose. They are integral to the overall experience of Sholat, enhancing the spiritual connection and making each prayer a unique encounter with the divine. Now let's delve deeper into these movements and understand their significance. The first movement begins with Takbiratul Ihram. This initial act marks the commencement of Sholat, the Islamic prayer ritual. It involves the raising of the hands and the utterance of the words Allahu Akbar, which translate to God is the greatest. This isn't just a physical motion, it's a profound spiritual gesture. Through Takbiratul Ihram, worshippers are signaling their readiness to step into a sacred space, to stand before the divine with a humble heart. The raised hands symbolize the act of surrender, of relinquishing worldly concerns and focusing solely on God. The utterance of Allahu Akbar, meanwhile, is a powerful affirmation of faith, a declaration of God's greatness that reverberates through the soul. This movement is a gateway, a threshold that one crosses to enter the realm of Sholat. It's a moment of transition, of leaving behind the mundane and stepping into the sacred. This movement sets the stage for the rest of the prayer. Next, we have qiyam, the standing position. This is more than just physical stance, it is a symbol of our respect and attentiveness towards the Almighty. When we stand in qiyam, we are, in essence, standing before God, presenting ourselves in His divine presence. In the grand scheme of prayer, qiyam serves as a crucial starting point for our spiritual journey. It's a moment of mindfulness, a moment to ground ourselves, to connect with our faith and purpose. It's a moment where we align our body, mind, and soul in preparation for the sacred conversation with our Creator. This posture is not only about the physical act of standing, but also about the spiritual state of standing in reverence and humility before God. It's a reminder that we are in the presence of the one who created us, the one who sustains us, and the one to whom we will return. From qiyam, we move on to the next important movement. Now, let's talk about ruku, the act of bowing. This is a crucial movement in the ritual of Sholat, one that is performed with deep reverence and humility. Imagine yourself standing tall, then bending at your waist, your hands resting on your knees. You're not merely bending your body, you're also bending your spirit, acknowledging the greatness and grandeur of the divine. Ruku is a physical manifestation of our inner humility, a reflection of our deference to God's omnipotence. It's a moment of profound connection, a private dialogue between the worshipper and the worshipped. In this position, we are like reeds bending before the wind, flexible and humble, yet unbroken. Our heads are lowered, but our spirits are elevated, reaching out to the celestial. In performing ruku, we surrender our ego. We acknowledge our insignificance in the face of divine majesty. We are reminded of our place in the cosmos, fostering a sense of humility and gratitude within us. The act of ruku is a powerful gesture of submission. The most revered movement in Sholat is sujud, the prostration. It's a profound act of worship that carries great significance in Islam. This movement is more than just a physical action, it's a spiritual journey that takes us closer to our Creator. The sujud is performed by placing 7 parts of the body on the ground: the forehead, the tip of the nose, both hands, both knees, and the toes of both feet. This position signifies the believer's humility and submission before God. It's an act of surrender, a gesture that says, "You are my Lord, and I am your servant." But why is the forehead specifically touched to the ground, you may wonder? The forehead houses the frontal lobe, the part of our brain that's responsible for decision-making, problem-solving, and consciousness. By placing this critical part of our being on the ground, we symbolize the submission of our will, our intellect, and our ego to the will of God. This act of prostration isn't just about physical submission, though. It's also about emotional surrender. It's about letting go of our worries, our fears, our ambitions, and laying them all before our Creator. It's about acknowledging that while we strive, it is ultimately God who grants success. The sujud is also a reminder of our mortality. As we touch our foreheads to the earth, we are reminded that we came from it and will return to it one day. This humbling thought prompts us to live our lives in a way that is pleasing to our Creator. The Prophet Muhammad, peace be upon him, once said, "The closest that a servant is to his Lord is when he is prostrating." This is because in this position, we are physically low, but spiritually, we are at our highest. We are completely surrendered to God, acknowledging His greatness and our need for Him. Sujud is indeed a beautiful moment of connection and communication with God. It's a moment of peace, of humility, and of surrender. It's a moment when we are closest to our Creator, a moment when we realize our true purpose in life. Sujud is the epitome of surrender in the Sholat. Lastly, we have Jalsa and Qada, the sitting positions. These 2 positions are crucial elements of the Sholat, serving as moments of tranquility and reflection. Jalsa, the brief sitting position between 2 prostrations, allows for a momentary pause, a chance to gather oneself before the second prostration. It's a moment of transition, an interlude of peace amid the rhythm of the prayer. On the other hand, Qada, the final sitting position, is where the prayer reaches its conclusion. This position is longer than Jalsa and is a time for recitation and supplication. It's a moment of deep connection, a personal conversation between the worshipper and the divine. It's during Qada that we recite the Tashahhud, bearing witness to God's oneness and the prophethood of Muhammad. These sitting positions bring the prayer full circle, ending where we began. They represent moments of peace and reflection, wrapping up the Sholat in a state of calm and tranquility. To wrap up, let's summarize the importance of movements in Sholat. This sacred practice, a cornerstone of Islamic faith, is an intricate dance of devotion, each movement carrying a profound significance, each gesture a testament to surrender, respect, humility, and peace. We began our journey with Takbiratul Ihram, the starting point of our prayer. The act of raising our hands to our ears, declaring Allahu Akbar, is a powerful declaration of God's greatness, setting the tone for the entirety of the Sholat. Next, we transitioned into the Qiyam, the standing position. This upright stance is a symbol of our alertness and readiness to engage in sacred communication with our Creator. It's a moment of anticipation, a silent affirmation of our presence and intention to worship. Then, we moved into the Ruku, the bowing position. This action represents our humility before God, a physical manifestation of our inner submission. The deeper the bow, the deeper the humility, reminding us of our place in the grand scheme of existence. The journey continued with the sujud, the prostration. Here we touch our forehead to the ground, the highest point of our body surrendering to the lowest. This act symbolizes the pinnacle of submission and respect, a moment of intimate connection with God. Finally, we found ourselves in the Jalsa and Qada, the sitting positions. These moments of stillness are opportunities for reflection and introspection, a chance to absorb the spiritual energy cultivated throughout the Sholat. Each of these movements, in their own unique way, contribute to the spiritual journey of Sholat. They are not just physical actions but symbolic gestures that connect us to a higher power, helping us navigate our spiritual path with grace and humility. Understanding these movements adds a new layer of depth to our Sholat, making each prayer a profound spiritual experience.